So we're going to do a little bit better introduction of my new little alien baby. He is the Grayson sculpt Grayson by Ashton Drake Galleries, and which you could see in the previous video, but the previous video wasn't very well done. But I want to tell you we kind of learned a few things about this little person. We discovered that as far as genders, it would be a boy. So it is a he. We discovered that he's not an infant. He's a little bit older, but not quite an adult either. Maybe more of a young adult. Possibly between, in human years, it would be like, around between 19 and 24. Because he's mature enough to be on his own. And I apologize about the shaking of the camera. We've got Prince over here that is digging his claws into me. All right, so he's decided to, and I'm very happy that he accepted my invitation to my nursery. It seems that he can be a tutor for small children, and he's agreed to do this for me, to teach them acceptance and possibly teach them about other cultures, whether they be alien or human or, basically alternative. I'm looking to add to my alternative collection, and he is my first one. We did also discover that, and this is something that we had to decide together. We had to talk about names, and he knows about my whole Star Trek thing. So he actually decided he would like to be named Neelix. It's another character from Star Trek. Voyager. So from Star Trek Voyager. And I also discovered that although he is comfortable with just, him being him, I'm not comfortable with his little bottom being out. So we're going to have to discover a fix for that. So we're going to back up just a little bit here. Yeah, so you can get the whole thing. So he's just darling. I'm just enjoying having him here. And as you can see, his eyes are reflective. You can actually see out my window. I have a nice big tree in my backyard, which I can't wait for that to start growing leaves again. And I'm just going to swing you over so you can look outside. That is some of the snow that we got this past weekend, which I didn't know about when I was driving back. So, is that a squirrel? No, that's just squirrel feeder? No, that is actually a squirrel. On the side of the window. Or on the side of the tree down there. Do you see it? My cats just love watching the animals out the back window. So, yeah, those trees are evergreen. And then the one with the branches up here that you could see through, that were reflected off of Neelix's eyes. That one is the one that I'm waiting to sprout leaves this summer. So going back to him. It'll just be Neelix. He won't have any middle name. It's just simply Neelix. But speaking about the snow, it was a very interesting start to my week, and I'll tell you why. It was ice raining in the Chicago area when I left. I did go see Raptor this weekend. I really needed it. So I went to see him this past weekend, and on my drive back Monday morning, I have to leave at 3. It gives me an hour and 45 minutes cushion, and also the possibility of missing that thick morning traffic on my way home. So generally it's about a 3-hour drive back home. And it seemed to be going fine. I mean, the roads in the area where I left, which was Melrose Park area. So the roads in that area, and then the roads all the way out and up to onto the highway. The highway was great. I was able to go the speed limit or slightly over, because it's nice to get home as soon as possible. I can generally get a nap in before I have to go to work. But as soon as I hit Wisconsin, the road started getting a little bit worse. So I ended up cutting back just a little bit, at about speed limit or lower, which seemed to be going all right for a little while. And then all of a sudden, everybody started stomping on their brakes in front of me. Well, I, of course, tapped the brakes to get the cruise control off. But as soon as I tapped the brakes, I could feel my truck sliding just a little bit. And each time I tapped the brakes, it slid a little bit more, but at the same time, all the cars in front of me were stopping. So I had to try to figure out how to get my car to stop, or my truck to stop, without actually hitting anyone. So I managed to do that. But then I got up and saw what was going on. I figured maybe somebody was sliding around a lot or something like that, but I got up to the front and realized that there was an accident. There was a semi-trailer blocking 3 lanes of traffic. So it was sideways on the highway. I'm trying to describe it with my hand. So it was sideways on the highway, and it was blocking all 3 lanes of traffic. So everyone was driving around onto the left, onto the side of the street, or the side of the road where you would normally pull over. So they were driving around the semi-trailer that way. Well, I didn't see the cab of the truck right away. Not even like going around on the trailer. I didn't see the truck part until I got on the other side, and I looked back, and actually the trailer was almost, well, it was definitely side by side with the cab. The cab and the trailer were side by side, and the cab was almost smashed into the trailer. And there was a lot of damage on both sides of the cab. And I looked around and realized that there was not a single other person. Like maybe this truck slid out of control and he was in an accident by himself. And I didn't see anyone else stopping. There had to have been, at least 20 to 30 other vehicles that went around him before I got there. I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to feel guilty if I don't stop and check. So I pulled over and I got out of my car and started approaching the truck, and the truck driver opened the door. And I asked him if he was okay, and he's like, yeah, I think so. And then he jumped straight down from the cab to the ground. And it was quite a jump. But he didn't jump, he just he put his feet out and kind of slid to the ground. And I asked him again if he was okay, and he's like, yeah, I think so. And I said, well, did you call the cops or anything? He's like, oh no, that would be a good idea. And I said, why don't you let me take care of calling the cops, and you just relax, try to catch your breath. And so I got 911 on the line and told them that there was an accident. She asked me if I was involved, and I told her no. She asked me where we were, and I said, well, I know that we're definitely in Racine on the highway, northbound, but I couldn't tell you what was the exit that was right before where the accident happened. I know it's one of the Racine exits with a big Quick Trip on it, and I described that it was just a big Quick Trip. There was just a lot of businesses like right there, right off the highway. And she said, well, do you see a mile marker? And I'm like, actually, I don't. And for some reason, she thought that was odd. So she tried to describe a mile marker to me, and I said, no, I really don't see one from where I am. So I kind of went around the side of the truck on the right, on the other side of where people were driving through, and there was a truck that had slid to about that side. And so that truck, for some reason, decided that would be a good way to get around the semi, and he did. And this was like a big truck, like another like short semi type deal. So he drove through there, and then I was, trying to make sure that everybody was going to go around the other way, so I ended up standing in the way just a little bit. And then I went to check on my guy again from the semi, and he was still a little dazed, but he said he had talked to his boss and he talked to his wife. And then I went back around to look again, and there was another car that was in the middle of the street, a little smashed up. So I went over to, I'm like, oh, there was another accident. So some people slowed down enough, or there was some kind of lull in traffic, where I was able to get over to them and ask them, hey, are you guys okay? And they said, yeah, we're okay. I'm like, okay, well, it'd probably just be safer if you stayed here. And then I was gonna get back over to the side of the road again, and nobody was stopping. There was still vehicles that were coming through, and I was trying to motion to them to ask them to stop so I could get through, and it was fairly obvious that I was trying to get through, and still nobody wanted to stop. Everybody was still driving around that outside place where I had gone. Um, so I finally got back over, and I talked to my guy again, and made sure he was still doing okay. He just seemed a little out of it. And then um, I turned around, and after I checked on him, and I kept him on the other side of the trailer so that if there was obviously things were still happening, it was still pretty slippery out. So I had him stay on the other side of the trailer, and when I came back around, there was um, another truck, well, a regular sized truck that was wedged under the semi trailer. So I went over to him and asked him if he was okay, and then I realized that people are going to keep coming, and the people that I told to stay in their cars might actually get hurt more if somebody slides into them. So what I did was I asked the guy in the truck to get out of his vehicle and come and stand by the side of the road with the guy from the semi. And then I went over to the other car and asked them if they could come out and stand over by the semi, so that if there's any more sliding vehicles, that they wouldn't get hurt. I mean, already it was a miracle that nobody got hurt. So I had them do that, and then the traffic started slowing down, and I noticed that there was police lights in the background, and I said, well, I think the police officer's on his way. And she's like, well, yeah, he's supposed to be, so I can let you go now the officer's on the scene. Like, well, all I can see is the lights, and I'd rather if I could stay on the line with you, because there's still a few vehicles still coming, so I want to make sure that you guys are aware of what's going on here. And so she stayed on the phone with me, and only a couple more vehicles came by, and then they just seemed to stop. And the police officer pulled up, and I had everybody over on the side, and so he pulled up, and I approached him, and I said, this. Oh, and way back when I talked to the couple in the car, I said, I think you guys are probably going to need traffic control because the semi is covering 3 lanes of traffic. And so she put me on hold and told somebody about it. So, but anyway, so I think that's why the cars stopped coming through, is that they had set up a roadblock at the last exit to get everybody to get off of the highway while they took care of the situation that I was monitoring, I guess. I'm not a first responder, but for some reason, I was, thinking of stuff, and, putting things together and trying to make sure that police officer knew everything. I told him, okay, so this person is from this vehicle, these 2 people are from this vehicle, and the driver of the semi is over there. And then I went back over and talked to everybody, make sure they were okay again, and he started talking to the truck driver. And then the 2 kids from the car said it was cold out. I said, well, you guys sit in my truck. Of course, I had to move the stroller from the back seat to the front, or to the trunk, and then I left, because my truck currently is a 2-door, which is not normal for me. So I left the seats folded forward so that they would not feel like they were trapped. And they thanked me, and then I went out and talked to the officer again, and told him what I knew. And then I went back to check on him, and the guy who was the driver, out of the couple, was kind of jumped when I opened the door, and he was just shaking like horribly. And he said, well, I'm just a little shaken up. And I'm like, yeah, I understand. And he's like, yeah, I don't think I'll like driving too much for a while. And I'm like, yeah, that'll happen. But you know what? You're going to be cautious for a while. You're going to be a little bit more cautious than normal, but eventually you're going to feel comfortable driving again. And apparently he had me on speakerphone because his mom chimed in and she goes, yeah, listen to the lady. You're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Nobody got hurt. And then she specifically asked me, she's like, nobody did get hurt, right? And I'm like, yeah, nobody got hurt. So, in the meantime, the officer had gotten the one guy from the truck into his SUV because he was diabetic and they were concerned about his health. But the driver of the semi had elected to remain outside. So I talked to him a little bit and realized, he's still really kind of dazed, and I was a little concerned, and I thought he should get out of the weather as well. So I talked to the police officer and said, hey, look, is there any way you can convince him to get into, one of these officers' trucks? Because by that time there was a sheriff there, and then there was I don't know, a state trooper. There's a couple of different divisions because it's a highway. So, I said, there's any way that you can convince him to get into one of your vehicles. And so he went over and talked to him and wasn't doing a very good job of convincing him. So I just said, hey, yeah, it'd just be a good idea if you warmed up. So I took him by the arm, not real tight, just, kind of leading gently, and had helped him into the back seat of that officer's truck. And then a couple of the officers that talked together said that they got most of the information that they needed. I asked them if they needed my information. They said no. I checked on the couple in the car again, and they said, well, do you think that you could take us to meet my dad? I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Where is he going to meet you? And they said, well, at that exit back there. So I'm like, okay, let me make sure that you're good to go. And then the police officer got into my truck, talked to the kids that were in there, and then he came out and he said that they were good to go. And then the other officer said, well, you still have their information? And he's like, yeah, I do. So he gave him their driver's licenses, and then they said, yeah, you're good to go. And I said, well, how far up to the next exit? Because I have to come back, drop them off. And they said, oh, a couple miles. I'm like, oh, crap. I didn't want to go through all of that again, but then he said, yeah, well, their dad is right down there, so just have him meet you at the other exit instead of this one. I'm like, okay, that'll be cool. So I went up and dropped off the kids. I didn't see anybody else that was in there after that. So I just dropped off the kids with their dad. He gave me a big hug right away. And then I said, while I was driving along, I realized that the kids didn't know which tow truck driver, which tow truck company had taken their vehicle. So I mentioned that to the dad, and he goes, oh yeah, we got that already. And I'm like, okay, good. So that was all said and done, but that had taken me an hour of being at the scene of the accident, so that didn't leave a whole lot of time for me to get, home and then to work. And the traffic conditions, as normal in the Milwaukee area, were atrocious. It was still slippery, not very well plowed, but then so I was taking it pretty slow. And then on the other side of Milwaukee, I was able to speed up a little bit more because the roads were better taken care of. And then by the time I think I got to Lamira, I was finally going the speed limit again. But I called and let them know that I was going to be late. And I get to work and there's like 10 cars in the parking lot. I mean, I noticed there was a lot of snow, which I did not know that we were getting that much snow up here in Wisconsin while I was away from work. So, I get to, where I'm supposed to be working, and, I pull into the driveway and there's like 10 vehicles at work there. And I went to go in the back door and my door lock wouldn't work. So I called the temp agency that I was working through and asked them, did you hear anything about this place being closed. And they said, well, let us check. And they said, well, no, we didn't actually hear about anything about it being closed. Do you like Neelix? Huh, Prince? Oh, that's a pretty picture. So anyway, I got around to the front and discovered that I could get in the front door. And so I went ahead and got in and went to work. And then when I left work, I was on my way home and discovered that if I had been home at the time of the snowfall, I would not have been able to get out of my driveway, and I would have missed a full day's worth of work. So it was, I guess it was, that I was supposed to go down to Chicago, because it kind of worked out the best for not only myself, but some other people that, I was in that place at the time that I needed to be there. So, it was an interesting start to my week. And we still have humongous piles of snow outside. There's still the natural snowfall, which is pretty high. And then there's all the snow plows with the snow being, well, and honestly, I don't remember from a while ago how the snow had been, that much that it was over our heads. I think the last time I remember the snow being that far over our heads in a regular parking lot was when I was a kid. So the fact that, even the snow plows at work had made a pile that is higher than me, is taller than me, and about twice as thick, tells me that there was a lot of snow that fell here over the weekend. So I'm still wearing my tennis shoes, though I haven't even put on boots. But it made for an interesting start to the week, and I'll tell you guys that this week is going much better than last week. I was still kind of back and forth with my grieving process, and I'm sure there'll still be a few more bad days, but I feel like I'm finally getting through the things that I need to process. And I'm able to better deal with the littler things that come along too. So, I'm very interested to find out what the rest of this year brings for me, though, because last year didn't end well. The beginning of this year wasn't great, and we had, something pretty tragic happen. I just hope that this past Friday the 13th was a major turnaround for me, that, things will get better from here. But I will keep you guys posted. I do have another box that needs to be opened, and I'm planning on opening that box next month. I do feel bad that this baby is left in the box for this amount of time, but I really need a birthday present for myself in May. So, and I can't think of anything else that I can buy myself for my birthday between now and then that I have any kind of money for. So I'm going to make her my birthday baby. Oh my gosh, I spilled the beans. It's a her. Yes, it's a her. And I do believe that I have her name picked out as well. So I hope you enjoyed looking at little Neelix. And oh yeah, that was something else. We did discover that even though he is a young adult, that he's not as that this type of where he came from, so that his race of alien grows to fit their space. So he is happy to be a tutor for babies because he's the same size as babies. So he won't end up getting any bigger than this, which will probably help my space issue in the crib when I get that up and going. So that's really lovely. And he's got that cute little smile. So it's going to be interesting to watch him in my nursery and see what transpires between him and the baby. And I am almost at 25 minutes, which I'm trying to limit myself to 15. But that was a really intense situation yesterday morning, which is why I didn't get to make this video until today. Because I was going to do his naming video yesterday. And I just was exhausted from the whole day that I ended up falling asleep before I expected to. And now baby's coming to check out Neelix. See what she thinks. Oh, she's like, what's outside the window? Alright, so well, thank you so much for watching my channel. And, I just want to, make sure that everybody remembers that, sometimes you have to look for them. Sometimes you need to find those gems of good things. It's not always easy to see the good in something that happens. It's not always easy to find good things when you're depressed or in a funk. I've been there. But, one of the things that keeps me going is my cats. My cats need me. They're very much a part of who I am. So there's baby. And Prince is right here. And Willis is sleeping on my bed. So there's always something that you can find if you look to be happy about. Even if it only lasts for a few minutes, a few hours, a whole day, a couple of days. There's always something pleasant that you can find to just kind of hang on to try to brighten your day or someone else's. So just keep that in mind. Thank you for watching. This is Kylie Cat. Have a good rest of your day.